The starship Eternal Grace descended through the clouds above Earth. Inside the viewing chamber, Ambassador pressed his four-fingered hand against the cold glass and watched the blue planet grow larger. He had visited 300 worlds in his long career. He had seen gas giants with floating cities and ice planets with underground oceans. But this small world made him feel something he could not name. "It looks peaceful," said Myra from behind him. She was young, barely past her third growth cycle, and this was her first diplomatic mission. Her silver skin reflected the light from the planet below. "The reports say they call it Earth. Such a simple name." Turned to face her. His tall body cast a long shadow across the metal floor. "Simple names often hide complex truths, young one. Remember that." The ship broke through the final layer of clouds. Below them stretched a massive city filled with towers of glass and steel. Rivers of vehicles moved through the streets like blood through veins. Millions of lights blinked in the early evening darkness. "That is Seoul," said the ship's computer. "One of their major population centers, approximately 10 million inhabitants." Myra made a small sound of surprise. 10 million, living so close together. How do they manage disease control, waste removal, food distribution? "That is what we are here to learn," replied. He smoothed his formal robes and prepared himself for first contact. The ship landed on a wide platform near the center of the city. Through the windows, could see a small group of humans waiting for them. They wore dark clothing and stood very still despite the cold wind that pulled at their hair and clothes. The ship's door opened. Stepped out first as protocol demanded. The air hit him immediately. It was thick and heavy, filled with strange smells. His breathing filters activated automatically, cleaning the atmosphere before it reached his lungs. "Ambassador," said one of the humans, stepping forward. "Welcome to Earth. I will be your guide during your visit." Studied her carefully. She was small, even by human standards. Her black hair was pulled back from her face, and her dark eyes watched him without fear. He had read reports about humans. They were supposed to be a young species, barely capable of space travel. But this female showed no sign of being impressed or frightened by his presence. "Thank you," he said. His translator device converted his words into her language. "This is my assistant, Myra. She is here to study your world." Looked at Myra and smiled. It was a strange expression, showing teeth. On most worlds, showing teeth was a threat, but humans did it to show friendliness. Found it unsettling. "We have prepared accommodations for you both," said. "Please follow me." They walked across the platform toward a waiting vehicle. Noticed immediately that there were no safety barriers around the edges of the platform. One wrong step and a person could fall hundreds of feet to the ground below. He mentioned this too. She looked at the edge and shrugged. "We are careful," she said simply. The vehicle took them through the city streets. Watched through the window as they passed between the tall buildings. Everywhere he looked, he saw potential dangers. The vehicles moved at incredible speeds, missing each other by tiny distances. People walked on narrow paths next to these death machines with no protection. Some of them even looked at small glowing rectangles in their hands instead of watching where they were going. "Your people seem very distracted," Myra observed. "Is that not dangerous?" Glanced at the pedestrians outside. "Sometimes there are accidents," she admitted, "but most people are fine." "Most people," repeated. The way she said it so casually disturbed him. They arrived at a large building with many windows. Signs in the human language covered the walls. Translator converted them automatically. "Warning, wet floor, emergency exit. In case of fire, do not use elevator. Fire assembly point." He stopped walking. "What is fire?" he asked. Paused. "Fire, it is. Heat and light, very hot, it can burn things. And this happens often enough that you need signs about it. Buildings sometimes catch fire, yes. It is not common, but it happens." Myra had pulled out her recording device and was documenting everything. Her hands were shaking slightly. Understood why. On their home world, fire was something that existed only in specialized industrial facilities. The idea of it happening randomly in living spaces was horrifying. Inside the building, more signs greeted them: earthquake safety instructions, tsunami evacuation route, severe weather shelter location. Stopped again. Earthquake, tsunami, severe weather, what are these things? Seemed surprised by his questions. Natural events, she explained. The ground sometimes shakes. Large waves sometimes come from the ocean. Storms bring strong winds and heavy rain. And these events are common. Well, earthquakes are more common in some areas. Tsunamis are rare but serious. Storms happen often, especially in certain seasons. Felt his secondary heart begin to beat faster. This was a stress response. He had not felt it in decades. Your planet attacks you regularly. Laughed, it was a strange musical sound. I would not say attacks, it is just nature. We have learned to live with it. She led them to their rooms on the upper floor. The space was comfortable and clean. Large windows offered a view of the city below. Noticed that the windows could be opened, allowing the outside air to enter freely. Is that safe? He asked, pointing at the windows. Of course, said, fresh air is healthy. After she left, immediately contacted his ship. Run a complete environmental analysis of this planet, he ordered. Full spectrum, every possible danger category. He waited while the computer processed his request. Myra sat in the corner, still recording her observations. Her silver face had gone pale. The results came back within minutes. Read them 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. Atmospheric toxicity, elevated oxygen levels. Combustion risk significant. Gravitational stress, 1 standard units. Moderate strain on skeletal systems. Solar radiation, ultraviolet exposure beyond safe limits without protection. Biological threats, millions of species of bacteria, viruses, parasites, and predators. Geological instability, active tectonic plates, volcanic activity present. Weather patterns, extreme temperature variations, electrical storms, high-velocity wind events. The report continued for several pages. Each category was worse than the last. Ambassador, said the computer, based on these findings, Earth qualifies as a Class 13. Myra dropped her recording device. It clattered against the floor. That is impossible, said. Class 13 worlds are uninhabitable. No intelligent species has ever evolved on a Class 13 world. The data is accurate, Ambassador. Earth meets or exceeds all criteria for Class 13 classification. Walked to the window and looked out at the city. Millions of humans lived down there, going about their daily lives. They walked among dangers that would kill most species within hours. They built homes on unstable ground. They breathed toxic air. They existed in a world that seemed designed to destroy them. And they did it all with smiles on their faces. What are these creatures? He whispered to himself. Outside, the sky had grown dark. In the distance, saw a flash of light followed by a deep rumbling sound. A storm was coming. He had a feeling that his mission was about to become very complicated. Did not sleep that night. He stood by the window and watched the storm roll across the city. Lightning split the sky every few minutes, turning night into day for brief, terrifying moments. Thunder shook the building so hard that objects rattled on the shelves. Rain fell in thick sheets, flooding the streets below. And through it all, the humans continued their lives. He watched them run through the rain with small shields made of fabric and metal. They held these things above their heads as if such flimsy protection could save them from the electricity falling from the sky. Some of them did not even have shields. They simply ran faster, laughing as water soaked their clothing. They are insane, Myra said. She had given up on sleep hours ago and now sat wrapped in a blanket, watching the storm with wide, frightened eyes. This is a Class 10 electrical event at minimum. Any one of those lightning strikes could kill instantly. I know, replied. And they are playing in it. That group down there, do you see them? They are jumping in the water puddles. Saw them? Young humans, probably not yet fully grown, were splashing in the flooded streets. Their elders watched from nearby, making no move to bring them inside to safety. By morning the storm had passed. The sky was clear and blue as if nothing had happened. Arrived at their door looking fresh and rested. "Good morning," she said cheerfully. "Did you sleep well?" Stared at her. "There was a massive electrical storm last night." "Oh yes, it was quite strong. We needed the rain though. The farmers will be happy." "People could have died." Tilted her head considering this. "I suppose some might have. Lightning strikes do happen, but it is rare. Maybe a few hundred deaths per year worldwide." "A few hundred deaths," repeated slowly, "and you consider this acceptable?" "Well, we cannot control the weather. We just learn to be careful. Do not stand under tall trees during storms. Do not hold metal objects. Stay indoors if possible. Basic safety." Myra made a small choking sound. Understood her reaction. On their world, a single death from environmental causes would trigger a massive investigation. The idea of accepting hundreds of deaths as normal was beyond comprehension. "Today I thought we could tour the city," continued, apparently unaware of their distress. "There is much to see. We can visit some historic sites, maybe get some food. Do you eat solid food?" "Yes," managed to say, "we eat." They left the building and walked into the morning sun. Immediately, felt the radiation pressing against his skin. His suit's protective layer activated, but even through the filter, he could feel the heat. The local star was pumping out dangerous levels of ultraviolet radiation. "Is it always this bright?" Myra asked, shielding her eyes. "This is a nice day," said. "Sometimes it gets much hotter. In summer, temperatures can reach 40 degrees. Quickly converted the measurement in his head. 40 degrees on the human scale was well above the comfort zone for most species. It was the kind of temperature that could cause heat stroke and organ failure. "How do you survive such heat?" he asked. "We drink water, stay in the shade. Some buildings have cooling systems. It is not so bad if you are used to it." They walked through the streets of the city. Everywhere looked, he saw more evidence of the dangers humans face daily. Ground vehicles rushed past at deadly speeds. Construction workers balanced on thin beams hundreds of feet above the ground. Street vendors cooked food over open flames right next to crowds of people. They passed a building where people were running on machines that moved beneath their feet. Through the glass windows, could see rows of humans deliberately exhausting themselves, sweating and breathing hard. "What is that place?" Myra asked. "A fitness center," explained. "People go there to exercise." "They are torturing themselves," Myra said with horror. "No, they enjoy it. Exercise makes humans stronger and healthier. Without it, our bodies grow weak." Filed this information away. Humans apparently needed to constantly damage their bodies in order to maintain them. It was like a machine that required braking to function properly. They stopped at a small shop where bought them drinks. The liquid was cold and sweet. Analyzed it with his suit's scanner before drinking. The results showed it contained refined sugar, artificial chemicals, and mild stimulants. "Is this safe to consume?" he asked. Laughed. "It is just soda. Maybe not the healthiest choice, but one drink will not hurt you. Your food contains substances that are not healthy. Many of our foods do. We know they are bad for us, but they taste good. Life is about balance." Did not understand this at all. Why would a species deliberately consume things that harmed them? They continued their tour. Showed them a large park in the center of the city. It was filled with trees and grass, and humans of all ages walked along the paths. Some sat on benches reading. Others threw objects for small furry animals to chase. "What are those creatures?" Myra asked, pointing at one of the animals. Dogs said they are pets, companions. Are they dangerous? Some can be if not trained properly, but most are friendly. Watched as a large dog with sharp teeth jumped up and licked a small human child's face. The child laughed and hugged the animal. On most worlds, allowing a predator that close to a young one would be considered criminal neglect. They were crossing a wide open area when the ground suddenly moved beneath their feet. Stumbled, his balance completely disrupted. Myra fell to her knees with a cry of alarm. The shaking lasted only a few seconds, but to it felt like an eternity. When it stopped, he looked around in panic. Surely this was the beginning of some catastrophe. Surely the humans would be running for shelter. But no one was running. People had paused briefly, looking around, and then continued whatever they had been doing. A woman nearby picked up her dropped shopping bag. A man straightened his hat. Children who had stopped on the playground equipment started moving again. "What was that?" demanded. "Just a small earthquake," said calmly. "Maybe a 3 or 4 on the scale, nothing to worry about." The ground itself moved. "Yes, it does that sometimes. This region is quite stable actually. Other places have much worse earthquakes." Myra was still on the ground, her whole body trembling, helped her up. Her silver skin had gone completely white. "Your planet is trying to kill you," she said in a shaking voice. "The sky attacks you with electricity. The sun burns you with radiation. The ground moves beneath your feet. How do you live like this?" Looked at them both with an expression that could not read. Was it pity, confusion, something else? "I never thought about it that way," she said slowly. "This is just life. This is how it has always been. We were born here, we grew up here, we learned to survive." "But do you not live in constant fear?" asked. Considered the question carefully. "No," she finally said. "I mean, we take precautions, we build strong buildings, we create warning systems, we teach our children what to do in emergencies, but we do not spend our days afraid. Fear would not change anything. The storms would still come. The ground would still shake. We cannot stop these things, so we simply adapt." She smiled again, that strange expression with teeth. Humans are very good at adapting. Looked at the people around him. They had already forgotten about the earthquake. They were talking, laughing, living their lives as if nothing had happened, as if the planet had not just tried to shake them off its surface. He thought about his own world, the carefully controlled environment, the filtered air and regulated temperatures, the complete absence of natural disasters. His people had spent thousands of years making their planet perfectly safe. And yet here were the humans, thriving on a world that wanted them dead. "I need to send a report to the council," he said quietly. "Of course," replied. "Take all the time you need. Dinner is at 7. I hope you like spicy food." She walked away, leaving and Myra standing in the park. The sun continued to shine. The air continued to flow. The ground remained still for now, but knew it was only a matter of time before the next danger appeared. And he knew the humans would face it the same way they faced everything else. With a smile, the next morning, announced that she wanted to introduce them to her family. Agreed, hopping to learn more about human social structures. What he learned instead would change his understanding of humanity forever. They traveled by vehicle to a different part of the city. The buildings here were smaller, more spread out. Explained that this was a residential district where families lived. "My brother is home today," she said. "He works difficult hours, so it is nice when he has time off." "What does your brother do?" Myra asked. "He is a firefighter." His translator provided the meaning, but he did not understand it at first. "He fights fire, as a profession." "Yes, when buildings catch fire, he goes inside to rescue people and put out the flames." Stopped walking. He needed a moment to process this information. "Your brother deliberately enters burning structures." "Of course, someone has to save the people trapped inside." But the heat, the smoke, the danger of collapse. That is why firefighters wear special equipment and train very hard. It is a respected profession, very honorable. They arrived at a modest home with a small garden in front. A man was sitting on the steps, drinking something from a cup. He stood when he saw them approaching. He was taller than, with broad shoulders and a friendly face. "And these must be our visitors from space," he bowed slightly. "I am welcome to our home," returned the greeting as best he could. Myra was too busy staring at to respond. The man radiated physical power. His arms were thick with muscle, and he moved with the easy confidence of someone who knew their own strength. They went inside and sat in a comfortable room. His wife, a small woman named, brought them tea and small cakes. She smiled warmly at the aliens and did not seem frightened by their appearance at all. "Tells me you are interested in Earth," said. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," admitted. "Your world is very different from what we expected." "Different how?" Myra leaned forward. "We have classified your planet as a Class 13, the most dangerous category. Every day you face conditions that would kill most species in the galaxy." Laughed. It was a deep, warm sound. "Is that so? I suppose I never thought of it that way. To me it is just home." "Your sister said you are a firefighter," said. "Can you tell us about your work?" Something changed in his expression. It became more serious, more focused. "Firefighting is about protecting people. When someone's home is burning, when they are trapped and afraid, we go in and bring them out. It is simple." "But the risk to yourself?" "Of course there is risk. Fire is dangerous. Buildings can collapse. Smoke can kill you faster than flames. We know this. We train for years to handle these situations. We wear protective gear and work as teams. But yes, sometimes firefighters die." He said it so matter-of-factly, felt his throat tighten. "Why would you choose such work?" Myra asked. "Why deliberately put yourself in danger?" Was quiet for a moment. He looked out the window at the street outside where children were playing. "Because someone has to," he finally said. "Because when you are trapped in a burning building, when you think you are going to die, you need to know that someone is coming for you. You need to know that you are not alone. That is why I do it." Placed her hand on her husband's arm. "I worry about him every time he goes to work," she said softly. "But I am also proud. He has saved many lives." 2 weeks ago," continued, "we responded to an apartment fire. An old building not built to modern safety standards. The whole top floor was burning. We got most people out, but there was a grandmother and her grandson still inside. The stairs had collapsed. The only way to reach them was through a window 3 floors up." "What did you do?" asked. "I climbed up the outside of the building, used a ladder to reach the 2nd floor, then scaled the wall the rest of the way. The heat was incredible. My gloves were smoking by the time I reached the window." "You climbed a burning building." "I had to. The boy was only 6 years old. His grandmother could not move him alone," smiled. "I got them both out. They are alive because of that day. That is why I do this work." Sat back in his chair. He did not know what to say. The idea of deliberately entering a burning structure to save strangers was beyond anything in his experience. On his world, safety was paramount. No one would ever be expected to risk their life for another. But here on Earth, it was not only expected, it was honored. "Tell them about the flood," said. Nodded. "Last summer there was heavy rain for many days. Rivers overflowed. Entire neighborhoods were underwater. We worked for 72 hours straight, pulling people from their homes, sometimes from their cars. The water was contaminated with chemicals and sewage. Several of my team members got sick afterward, but we saved over 200 people." 72 hours, Myra repeated, "without rest." "We took short breaks when we could, but people were drowning. We could not stop." Thought about his own life. His comfortable office in the Galactic Council building. His regulated schedule of work and rest. his complete safety at all times. He had never faced a single moment of real danger in his entire existence. And here was this human, who faced death regularly and considered it normal. "Do all humans do such dangerous work?" Myra asked. "Not everyone," said, "but many do. Firefighters, police officers, soldiers, doctors, rescue workers. There are millions who choose professions that put them in harm's way." "Why?" It was who answered. "Because we care about each other. Because when one of us is in trouble, we cannot simply look away. It is in our nature to help." Remembered what he had read about humans before coming here. The reports described them as a young, primitive species, barely space-capable, not particularly intelligent by galactic standards. The Council had debated for years about whether to even contact them. But those reports had missed something important. They had measured human technology and found it lacking. They had measured human strength and found it average. They had measured human intelligence and found it unremarkable. They had not measured human courage. They had not measured the willingness of one human to die so that another might live. "I must ask you something," said carefully, "and please understand I mean no offense, but I need to know. What drives you? What makes a person run into a burning building? What makes a species survive on a world that is constantly trying to kill them?" Thought about the question for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but firm. "We are afraid," he said. "Make no mistake. We feel fear like any creature. When I stand outside a burning building, my heart races. My hands shake. Every instinct tells me to run away." "Then how do you go in?" "Because fear is not the end of the story. Fear tells us there is danger. It does not tell us what to do about it. We get to decide that for ourselves. And humans have decided, over and over throughout our history, that some things are more important than our own safety." "Such as?" "Our families, our friends, strangers we have never met, the next generation, the idea that the world should be better than it is." Leaned forward. "We are not brave because we do not feel fear. We are brave because we feel it and act anyway." Myra was crying. Silver tears ran down her pale face. Did not have tear ducts, but he felt something shifting inside him, something fundamental about his understanding of the universe. These humans were not primitive. They were not weak. They were the most remarkable species he had ever encountered. And the galaxy had no idea. "I need to make another report to the Council," he said softly. Nodded, "Of course, but first please eat," made her special rice cakes. They ate. The food was strange but good. Outside, life continued in the city. Somewhere new, another fire was starting, another flood was rising, another disaster was approaching. And somewhere, a human was getting ready to face it. On the fourth day of their visit, the earthquake came. Was in the middle of a meeting with local government officials when the first tremor hit. The floor shook violently. The long table where they sat jumped and rattled. Objects fell from shelves. The lights flickered. And then the real shaking began. This was nothing like the small earthquake in the park. This was the planet itself crying out in anger. The building swayed like a tree in the wind. Cracks appeared in the walls. The sound was deafening, a deep rumbling roar that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Found himself on the floor, his arms wrapped around his head. His hearts were pounding so hard he thought they might burst from his chest. This was death. This was the end of everything. And then it stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the noise. Slowly raised his head and looked around. The room was a mess. Furniture had toppled over. Papers were scattered everywhere. A large crack ran across the ceiling. But the humans were already standing up. "Everyone okay?" one of them called out. "Fine here. Just a few bruises." That was a big one, maybe a 6 or 7. They were dusting off their clothes, checking their communication devices, helping each other to their feet. One man was actually laughing. Myra was still on the floor, her entire body shaking with terror. Managed to get up and help her. His legs felt like water. "How are you all so calm?" he demanded. The building nearly collapsed. "The building is fine," said. She had somehow appeared at his side. "It was built to handle earthquakes. They all are in this region. The shaking feels bad, but the structure is safe." "You cannot know that." "We can. We have engineers who study these things. They design buildings that can bend without breaking. It is science." A siren began to wail outside. The humans all paused to listen. "Tsunami warning," one official said. "The earthquake must have been centered offshore." "Tsunami," repeated. "The giant waves." "Yes, we should move to higher ground. Just a precaution." Within minutes, the building was empty. The humans filed out in an orderly manner, following clearly marked routes to designated safe areas. There was no panic, no pushing, no screaming. They moved like they had done this 1,000 times before. Because they had. And Myra were swept along with the crowd. They climbed stairs to an elevated area overlooking the coast. Thousands of people had already gathered there. They stood watching the ocean, waiting to see what would come. "How often does this happen?" Myra asked in a hollow voice. "Major earthquakes. Maybe once or twice a year in this region," replied. "Tsunamis are less common. We might not even get one today. The warning is just a precaution." "Once or twice a year," said slowly, "and you simply accept this." Looked at him with genuine confusion. "What else would we do? We cannot stop the earth from moving. We can only prepare for it and respond when it happens." They waited for an hour. The tsunami never came. The warning was eventually lifted and people began returning to their normal activities. Schools reopened. Shops resumed business. The damage from the earthquake was already being cleaned up. Watched a group of children playing on a piece of playground equipment. They were laughing and chasing each other, apparently completely unaffected by the disaster that had just occurred. "Those children," he said, "they were just in an earthquake. Should they not be traumatized?" "Children are resilient," said, "and they have been through earthquake drills since they were very young. They know what to do. They know they are safe because adults are looking after them, so they do not worry." But the fear. They will talk about it later. They will process their feelings with their parents and teachers. Some might have nightmares for a few nights, but they will be okay. Humans learn to handle difficult things. Thought about his own childhood. He had never faced a moment of real danger. His parents had protected him from every possible threat. The idea of children learning to cope with earthquakes was alien to him in the truest sense. "I need to understand something," he said. "How does your species survive? How has humanity not gone extinct on this world?" Sat down on a bench and patted the space beside her. Sat. The afternoon sun was warm on his skin, but he barely noticed. "Our ancestors had it much worse," she began. "They lived without technology, without buildings that could withstand earthquakes, without warning systems for tsunamis. They faced predators with nothing but sticks and stones. They endured ice ages and droughts and plagues. Millions died, millions more. And yet you survived." "We survived because we adapted. We learned. We passed knowledge from one generation to the next. We figured out how to build shelter and grow food and cure diseases. Every generation made life a little bit better for the next one." She gestured at the city around them. "All of this exists because countless people before us refused to give up. They could have surrendered to the dangers of this world. They could have accepted extinction. But they did not. They fought. They struggled. They survived." "At such cost," Myra whispered. "Yes, at tremendous cost. Every advance was paid for in blood and tears. Every discovery came after countless failures. Our history is filled with tragedy," smiled sadly. "But it is also filled with triumph. Every time the world knocked us down, we got back up. Every time it seemed hopeless, someone found a way forward." Looked at the people around him. Young and old, tall and short, busy with their daily lives. They had just experienced an earthquake. Some of them had probably lost property, maybe even been injured. And yet here they were, continuing on. "You asked how we survive," said. "The answer is simple. We do not know how to quit. It is not in our nature. When faced with impossible odds, we do not calculate the probability of success. We just try anyway. Even when you know you will fail. Especially then, because sometimes the impossible happens. Sometimes the one in a million chance comes through. And even when it does not, we would rather die fighting than live surrendering." A child ran past them, chasing a ball. Her mother called after her to be careful. The sun continued to shine. The damaged building stood waiting for repair. "Ambassador," said quietly, "I know our world seems terrifying to you. I know you think we are crazy to live here, but this place made us who we are. Without the challenges, without the dangers, we would not be human. We would be something lesser. You believe suffering makes you stronger. I believe that overcoming suffering makes us stronger. Anyone can endure pain. The question is what you do with it. Do you let it destroy you, or do you use it to build something better?" Did not have an answer. His entire civilization was built on the elimination of suffering. Safety was the highest goal. Comfort was the greatest good. The idea that struggle might have value was foreign to everything he knew. But looking at these humans, at what they had built on this deadly world, he could not deny the results. "I think," he said slowly, "that my report to the council will need to be very different from what I originally planned." Smiled. "Oh, and what will you tell them?" Stood and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, people were already rebuilding, already moving forward, already preparing for the next disaster. "I will tell them that we have found something extraordinary," he said. "A species that refuses to die, a people who have turned survival into an art form, and I will tell them that the Galactic Council needs to understand what that means." "And what does it mean?" Turned to face her. His expression was grave. "It means that nothing in this galaxy will ever be able to stop you, and everyone needs to know that." Laughed. "That seems a bit dramatic." "No," replied, "I do not think it is dramatic enough." The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador took his place at the speaking platform. 300 delegates from across the galaxy had gathered for his report. They represented empires that spanned thousands of star systems, civilizations that had existed for millions of years, species that considered themselves the pinnacle of evolution. They had come to hear about the primitive humans of Earth. Looked out at the assembled delegates. Their faces showed polite disinterest. This was a routine matter, they believed, a minor species from an insignificant world, nothing that would affect the great affairs of the galaxy. They were wrong. "Distinguished delegates," began, "I was sent to Earth to assess humanity's readiness to join the Galactic Union. I was expected to return with a standard evaluation, population levels, technology status, resource capacity, social stability." He paused and let the silence stretch. "Instead, I return to you with a warning." The chamber stirred. Delegates shifted in their seats. This was not the usual opening for first contact reports. "Earth is classified as a Class 13, continued. "The most dangerous category in our system. A world of extreme conditions, constant natural disasters, and lethal environmental factors. According to our models, no intelligent species should be able to evolve on such a planet." He pressed a button and images appeared on the display screens throughout the chamber. Lightning storms, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, earthquakes, predator attacks, disease outbreaks. "These are not historical records," said. "These are events that occur on Earth regularly, daily in some cases. The humans face Class 10 events as part of their normal lives." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Several delegates were checking their own devices, confirming his claims. "And yet," continued, raising his voice, humanity has not merely survived. They have thrived. They have built cities that can withstand earthquakes. They have created warning systems for tsunamis. They have developed medicines to fight diseases that would wipe out entire populations on other worlds. More images appeared. Human firefighters rushing into burning buildings, rescue workers pulling survivors from collapsed structures, doctors working through epidemics, soldiers standing against impossible odds. But their technology is not what makes them remarkable. What makes them remarkable is their spirit. Stepped forward, his voice growing intense. When a human sees another human in danger, they do not calculate the risk to themselves. They do not measure the probability of success. They act. They run toward the fire, not away from it. They dive into the flood waters. They stand between the helpless and the threat. The chamber was completely silent now. Every eye was fixed on the ambassador. I witnessed this myself. I watched a human walk through earthquake damage with nothing but concern for others. I met a man who enters burning buildings as his chosen profession. I saw children return to playing minutes after the ground tried to swallow them. He turned to face the High Council directly. The 5 ancient beings who governed the galaxy watched him with unreadable expressions. "We thought we would be welcoming a primitive species into our community," said. "We expected to teach them, to guide them, to protect them from the dangers of the galaxy." He almost laughed at the absurdity of it now. "We were wrong. Humans do not need our protection. They have been protecting themselves against forces far more dangerous than anything in the galaxy for their entire existence. They have been fighting for survival since their first breath." A delegate from the collective spoke up. "Ambassador, surely you exaggerate. Every species faces challenges. What makes humans different?" Turn to face him. What makes them different is that they do not stop. When they face a challenge they cannot overcome, they do not accept defeat. They try again, and again, and again, until they succeed or die trying. "That seems inefficient," the delegate said. "Perhaps, but it works. Earth should have killed humanity thousands of times over. Instead, humanity conquered Earth. They bent it to their will through nothing but stubbornness and courage." He returned to the main display and changed the images. Now they showed human achievements, the great pyramids, the towers of their cities, their spacecraft, their art and music, their families and communities. In a few thousand years, which is nothing on galactic timescales, humans went from living in caves to reaching for the stars. They did this while fighting their own planet every step of the way. They did this while facing dangers that would have driven any other species to extinction. Let that sink in. Now imagine what they will do when they no longer have to fight just to survive. Imagine what they will achieve when they can turn all that determination, all that courage, all that relentless drive towards something greater. "What are you suggesting, Ambassador?" asked one of the High Council members. "I am suggesting that humanity should not be treated as a junior member of the Union. They should not be given protected status, or training wheels, or careful supervision." He drew himself up to his full height. "I am suggesting that humanity should be treated as an equal, because whether we like it or not, that is what they are, and possibly more." "More than equal?" another council member asked sharply. "Yes, because we have grown soft, all of us. We have spent so long in our safe worlds, our controlled environments, our perfectly regulated societies. We have forgotten what it means to struggle. We have forgotten what survival really costs." Myra stepped forward to join him. She had been standing quietly at the side, but now she spoke. "I was terrified on Earth," she admitted. "Everything about that world scared me. The storms, the earthquakes, the diseases, the predators. I could not understand how anyone could live there." She took a breath. "But I watched them. I watched how they faced each danger, not with panic or despair, but with calm determination. They have a word for it: courage, the ability to act despite fear." She looked out at the delegates. We do not have that word in most of our languages because we have never needed it. Our worlds are safe. Our lives are comfortable. We have engineered away the need for bravery. And you think that is a weakness? A delegate demanded. I think it has made us blind, Myra replied. Blind to what truly drives progress, blind to what creates strength, blind to what makes a species truly great. Nodded. Humans are not great because of their technology or their resources. They are great because of their hearts, because they will throw themselves into danger to save a stranger, because they will rebuild after every disaster, because they will never, ever stop trying. He turned back to the council. My recommendation is simple. Accept humanity into the Union immediately. Give them full member status, and then watch carefully, because I believe that within a few generations they will accomplish things we cannot even imagine. And if they turn hostile, a council member asked, a species this resilient, this aggressive in their survival instincts, could they be a threat? Smiled. It was a strange expression on his face. I spent a week among them. I watched them face disaster after disaster, and in all that time I never saw them turn on each other. When the earthquake hit, they did not fight for resources or abandon the weak. They helped each other. They protected the children. They worked together. He shook his head. Humanity is not a threat to the galaxy. They are exactly what the galaxy needs, a reminder of what we have lost, a symbol of what we could be again, and perhaps, one day, a shield against whatever darkness lies beyond our current borders. The chamber remained silent as concluded. My report is complete. I recommend full membership for Earth and its people, and I suggest we do it quickly, because one way or another humanity is coming, and I would rather have them as allies than anything else. He stepped back from the platform. The vote was held that same day. For the first time in galactic history, a new species was granted full membership without the standard waiting period. When received the news, she smiled. It was the same smile had seen so many times during his visit, that strange, teeth-showing expression of human happiness. So we are part of the galaxy now, she said. You always were, replied through the communication screen. We simply failed to notice. What happens next? Looked at the stars visible through his ship's windows. Somewhere out there, humanity was taking its first steps into a much larger universe, and nothing would ever be the same. That, he said, is entirely up to you. Laughed. Then I think we will do what we have always done. Which is? Survive, adapt, overcome. Her smile widened, and maybe surprise a few people along the way. Could not argue with that. If there was one thing he had learned about humans, it was that they were full of surprises. And the galaxy had better be ready for them.